Hello and welcome back to Balancedskein. My name is Kendra and this is my YouTube channel where I talk about all the yarny things. Today I am going to rank my hand knit sweaters, specifically pullovers, from my favorite to my least favorite and talk a little bit about why I ranked them the way I did. So to give a little bit of context about my knitting journey, I have been knitting for just over 2 years. I learned how to knit back in October of 2020 and I haven't turned back since. I'm originally a crocheter and I still crochet here and there, but these days I'm absolutely obsessed with knitting and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Over the past 2 years, I've knit a lot of things, all of which I share over on Instagram and over on my Ravelry page. So if you want to see what the full collection looks like, feel free to check out either of those platforms that I'll be listing down in the description box. So couple of disclaimers. I'm not going to be going through every sweater I've made. So cardigans will not be included. Sweater vests will not be included, and any summer tank tops and camisoles that I've knit are not included in this list. In total, I have knit 6 pullover style sweaters for myself over the past couple of years, and I'm going to share all 6 of those with you guys and rank them from my favorite to least favorite. This is, I feel like, not a static list. Maybe my mood will change and the rankings will change, and I have lots of plans for new sweaters in the future. So maybe this time next year I will revisit a similar format and say rank my top 5 sweaters or something like that. But for now I have 6 and I'm gonna share every single one of them with you today. All right, so we are going to start with my favorite sweater or pullover of the 6, and that is my VZ. Here it is in the full glory. I talked about this sweater on, I think, a previous podcast episode, and I've talked about it a lot over on Instagram because I recently did some sweater surgery to it, I guess you could say. But basically, I ended up unpicking the bind off at the bottom and adding some additional length, probably somewhere around 3 inches of additional length to this sweater, because when I originally knit it, it was far too cropped. So this is a top-down raglan v-neck sweater. It has these really cool sort of varsity stripe style details at the cuff and along the v-neck here. And I knit this entirely in Brooklyn Tweed Arbor. So the main color is, I believe, burnished. The light color stripes is called arabesque, and the green colored striped is called dorado. So I really like this yarn. I love the fabric and I am super happy with how this turned out. Here is how it fits. I think you get the gist of it. This is at the top of the list. I don't know if it's recency bias because I did recently fix this, but prior to adding this length to this sweater, I would say that it would land about here when I'm just standing relaxed. So full midriff action, definitely not my preferred way for a sweater to fit. And as a result, I knit this just over a year ago. I hardly ever wore it. I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've worn it in the last year after completing it. But ever since I added the length, this is really just a well-fitting piece that I'm proud to wear to work, out and about. It is just a really good piece. And I mean, it was a good piece from the beginning. But if I had done this ranking video before adding the length to this sweater, this will probably be at the very bottom of the list because it was just far too cropped and, in my opinion, pretty unwearable in that state. So I'm so glad I added the length, and as a result, it is hands down my favorite hand knit pullover in my collection. So let this be a sign to any of you out there who maybe have a finished object that you want to revisit and do some tweaks to make it a better fit for you in general. Please take the time to go do that, because we put far too much time, spend far too much money on materials into our handmakes to ultimately not even wear them. So if it's something simple and doable, do yourself a favor and go back and fix those old finished objects so you can appreciate them that much more. Next up on the list is my Friday tee turned sweater. So this is another recent project. Well, the first one was not recent, but I recently fixed it and it pushed it to the top of my list. This was recently finished, so I scrambled to finish this before I went off to the New York Sheep and Wool Festival out in Rhinebeck, New York. My previous video was documenting my process of finishing up a couple projects and getting ready to depart on that trip. So if you want to see more about this sweater, check that video out. But yeah, I'm really happy with this one. I think it is the perfect sweater to just wear with jeans. I've worn it to work 2 or 3 times already. The pattern is well written. I'm happy with my yarn choice. So my main yarn is Kelburn Woolen's Camper, I believe, is their fingering weight yarn. And the light gray stripe is also Camper. I don't remember the colorway. And the brown stripe is Hudson and West Weld in the color Tobacco. Ugh, it's hard remembering things. But what I really like about this sweater, I mean, I've touched on everything I like about this sweater before, but just really quickly, I love the colors that I chose. I love the striping. I like the folded collar. I like my cuffs. I chose to go with tubular on all of the finishings. I really like the raglan detail here. That's sort of exaggerated across several stitches to add some definition to that detail. And yeah, I think it's a good length. I think I have a decent amount of positive ease, and it's just a really easy casual sweater to wear. I really have no complaints about it. What I also really like about this sweater is that it is fingering weight. So it's warm without being heavy or suffocating, because it is 100% non-superwash wool, but because it's fingering weight, it's very light and airy, but still warm. Those things can coexist, and I think the ticket is just choosing fingering weight. I mean, as much as people probably don't want to hear that, I am an advocate for fingering weight sweaters, and I have several in my queue, because after knitting this one and realizing how wearable it is and versatile the fabric is, I just want a bunch of fingering weight stuff in my collection. So this will not be the last fingering weight sweater that I knit, although it entirely might be the last broken rib sweater in fingering weight that I knit. Next up on the list, so this is third favorite sweater that I've knit myself. This is the Winter League Pullover by Two of Wands. Yes, Winter League Pullover. I used a recommended yarn, which is Lion Brand Hue and Me, which was developed in collaboration with the actual designer of this sweater, Alexandra Tavel of Two of Wands. And I chose the color Agave. And this is really, I consider making this my favorite, as in putting it at the top of the list, because I wear this thing all the time. I have my complaints. The yarn is not my favorite. It pills like crazy, if you couldn't tell. And I've talked about this several times. But you can also probably tell that I wear it a lot. Like even on my project vlogs, previous videos on this channel, I feel like there's never a video that's like vlog style or process style that spans over several weeks where I don't put on this sweater. There's not footage of me in this sweater at some point in those videos, and that's just a testament to how often I wear it. In fact, I was wearing it this morning. I think I slept in this last night. No shame whatsoever. I just really, really like it. It's a very relaxed fit, relatively oversized, easy to just throw on when I'm chilling at home. Now it does look a little worse for wear, so lots and lots of pilling, and the pills that are on it have pretty much matted to the fabric because I'm not delicate with this. So I machine wash and dry it, which is another reason I really, really like this piece, because I can just throw it in the wash. Whenever I need to clean it, I don't have to be delicate about it. I don't have to do a wool wash setting or soak it in wool wash or any special measures. So this truly is a day-to-day, very wearable, very practical piece for me. And I have coined it my house sweater because if I'm home and it has a little bit of chill in the air, I am 100% going to be wearing this sweater. So I am really happy because it is serving a very useful purpose in my day-to-day life. However, it's not the cutest. Like, I don't put this on to make a fashion statement, or I would never wear it to work. I might wear it to run errands here and there, throwing on some jeans or something like that. So yeah, it's higher, relatively speaking, on this list because it truly is a staple in my day-to-day house loungewear wardrobe. Next up on my list is my cotton grass pullover. This is another sweater. Actually, no, this is the only one sweater so far that I've talked about where I have an actual process vlog covering my journey knitting this piece. If Editing Kendra remembers, I will link that video up top or down below. But yeah, I have a whole video covering my journey knitting this up. So I really like this sweater. I haven't worn it a ton because I finished it right at the end of winter going into spring earlier this year. So I didn't have a lot of opportunities to wear mini sweaters after knitting this. And I actually knit this sweater as a celebration for us purchasing this very house. I'm not going to show you the outside of my house, but you can take my word when I say that the house has brick and is accented with this similar green color. So color-wise, I knit this sweater to match the house, which is really corny and geeky, but it just felt like a really cool opportunity to try some new yarn. And this was my first colorwork sweater. This is my first top-down yoke sweater. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. There were some snafus that the video I mentioned kind of go in depth about, but ultimately I'm really happy with how it turned out. And the only reason it's not at the very tip top of my list is because I haven't worn it enough to form a solid opinion about it. Like, I've worn it maybe 5 times in total. And I haven't worn it this season yet. So the last time I wore it was probably back in late March. So I'm still feeling it out. I mean, all positive things. I do like the way it fits. I like the way it looks. But we haven't built a rapport yet, if that makes sense. This was kind of one of the projects that I had a little bit of trouble ranking because I don't dislike it. Actually, like all of the sweaters I'm talking about, but everything is relative. So this is where this is landing in this list of sweaters today. I probably didn't mention this, but this sweater was designed by the Petite Knitter, not to be confused with Petite Knit. She has a ton of top-down circular yoke colorwork patterns. That's kind of what she's known for. And I'm really happy I chose this as my first colorwork pattern because I'm really happy with how it turned out. And yeah, so this is number 4 on the list. My 5th favorite sweater of 6 total sweaters is my Weekender. This is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. It is designed with worsted weight yarn. I chose Patton's Classic Wool and I think a gray heather color. It is knit bottom up. It has a split hem detail, very wide dimensions on the body to give a lot of positive ease with relatively fitted arms. And there is this slit boat neck, so there is no neck shaping whatsoever. I think the main thing working against it is this neck. This project made me realize I'm not a boat neck person. It also made me raise an eyebrow for Andrea Mowry because I'm not gonna get on that soapbox. This is actually special because it's the first sweater I ever knit. I almost forgot to mention that. So yeah, this is the first sweater garment that I ever knit for myself, and all things considered, it was really successful. I didn't know a lot of the techniques. I was kind of flying a little blind when it came to certain things in the pattern. It was my first time doing short rows, everything. But it was a huge learning experience, and I'm glad I made it. And in the end, I wound up with a sweater that fits me well and that's pretty comfortable. So I really can't complain. And this sweater makes me proud for that reason alone. But it's not my favorite in my collection, outside of the sentimental attachment that I have in it. But it's comfortable and it fits well. So I'm keeping it because it's a perfect house sweater, but it's in all other regards not really anything to write home about. I probably wouldn't make it again, even being a better knitter now, because it's just not the style that I'm attracted to. I think ultimately the reason I cast it on in the first place is because it is an insanely popular pattern. And in the first part of my knitting journey, I think I was really susceptible to knitting whatever's on the hot right now list, or seeking out patterns that are widely popular, that have a lot of project pages on Ravelry and everybody's talking about it. It looks like everybody's knitting it and there is a lot of hype around it. I don't necessarily think I want it to fit in because that's never really been my style, but I wanted to feel a part of it. I wanted to feel like a knitter with a capital K. So I felt like this was my way into like, I'm a legitimate knitter if I knit a weekender. Totally crap. It's an incredibly flawed logic, and I don't feel that way now, but at the time, that's really what fed into me deciding to make this pattern, because I never liked boat necks. And if I was really seeking out a pattern or a design that I felt like would fit into my wardrobe and would flatter me well, I would not have picked this. So I think I was just listening and paying attention to the wrong things. And yeah, as a result, this is near the bottom of my list, but I don't hate it. It's just not my favorite. So at the very bottom of my list, some of you may have guessed it. Maybe you didn't. This one hurts my feelings. And I have very mixed emotions about this project. But at the bottom of my list, it's my Sabin sweater. It's gorgeous. It is truly, so far, this is my knitting Mount Everest. This was an aspirational knit, and I am so proud that I was able to execute, especially because this was my first cabled sweater ever. And I've knit one cable sweater since then, but it's nowhere near as intricate as this one. It doesn't look like you're able to see the definition of those cables very well. It's gorgeous, don't get me wrong. I love so many things about this sweater, but there are some things I really, really don't love about it. And the things I don't love are entirely my fault. So let's talk about it. First of all, let's put it on so you can see the first problem. If you watched my project vlog of me knitting this up, then you are well aware of the fiasco that is this ridiculously tight neckline. Did my head grow? I think my head grew. Oh no. Oh. Ouch! That was my hair. Oh. I think I proved my point with that attempt to try and get on. So I'm not gonna bother. I'll maybe pop in some pics of me wearing it. But yeah, I made the neckline way too tight. So I picked up less stitches. One thing I really don't like about sweaters that are supposed to be crew necks is when the neck sort of stretches out and gives like a scoop neck or boat neck type of silhouette. Really don't like that. So I reached out to the designer actually, and she advised picking up less stitches. She gave me a specific number, but it turns out that specific number was not enough to fit over my head. And maybe it was, but maybe my bind off, my folded over bind off on the inside here, it has no stretch. The thing is that the ribbing does stretch. So if this bind off stretched as much as the ribbing itself, it would have 100% fit over my head. So I don't think she gave bad advice. It's just that it was poor execution on my part. And had I bound off in a stretchier way, it would 100% fit over my head, because as we can see, the collar itself stretches beyond the point of the bind off. It's very rigid. It has no give to it. And that makes it really impractical to wear. Oh my God, for a second I thought I wasn't recording. Okay, that makes it really impractical for me to wear. So I don't find myself really grabbing this project or this piece that often. I finished this in January of this year. This was my first finished object of 2022. And like I said, it was my knitting Mount Everest. I was really proud to have finished this and for it to be my first seam sweater, my first seamed knit sweater, and my first cabled sweater. It was truly a feat of just, I was so proud to have completed this. And all things considered, it's a good sweater. There are just some glaring issues that, not that I can't get past, because I do intend to fix the collar. In fact, I'm probably gonna do this after I finish recording this video. But yeah, there's some other things that I wish I would have done differently with this piece. So that's the collar, and that's the main issue. The second issue that I have with this piece is that you may not be able to tell from holding it up, but it is quite long. Probably maybe even fully covers my bottom side. So that was not the intent. So the pattern is written, I think, for the dimensions of a more masculine fit, and it gives you specific dimension modifications to achieve a more feminine fit. And that really just involves shortening the arms and the body of the sweater. And that means shortening the front and back panel, because this is knit flat and seamed. So if this was a top-down seamless sweater and I knit the body too long or too short, that would be a very easy modification to execute. But unfortunately, because of the way the sweater is constructed, me making the body too long is kind of something I can't easily get past without deconstructing the entire sweater. And it's bottom up, so I would have to frog back all of this top shaping here so that the body portion is shorter, and then re-knit the entire top portion, re-seam the entire sweater together, redo the collar. It would be essentially knitting an entire sweater again. And I'm not so sure I'm keen on going down that path. In fact, I know I'm not. So yeah, that kind of bummed me out. And the body being long isn't really an issue, or it wouldn't be if this sweater had more positive ease. So it's kind of fitted. It's not a big roomy sweater, like it has some ease to it, but if I want a sweater that hits me below my butt, then I want the sort of roominess to be more all over instead of just in the length. This is kind of like, I tried to make a dress, but I didn't get far enough. The proportions are weird in my personal opinion. And this is a white sweater. Well, it's off-white. I guess you could call it cream, But to have a sweater of this color in a natural fiber that you can't just throw in the washing machine, and for it to be below the butt, that means every time I sit down when I'm wearing the sweater, I'm sitting on the sweater itself. So I feel like that is just a recipe for this just getting mucky over time in a way that I won't be able to fix in the long term. So yeah, that is the main issue number 2 that I'm not really happy about with this sweater. The third issue is my yarn choice. So I knew when I decided I wanted to make a cable sweater, I wanted to make it in a cream color. So the color, nothing wrong with it. But this is 100% merino 2-ply yarn. And it is beautiful, gorgeous, squishy, drapey. It is truly, truly a dream. But I don't think it is the best option for a cabled sweater. I feel like I lost some of the cable definition because of how sort of soft this yarn is. It doesn't look bad, but if I were to use something like a Cascade 220 or a Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted, or a Patton's Classic wool worsted, or a Lion Brand Fisherman's wool, those would have given me more defined and plump cables. And I think that's something that I want if I'm knitting a cabled sweater. I don't want to knit it with anything that is going to lose that definition. So yeah, 100% merino yarn, non-superwash, and it's only 2 plies. So you don't have the roundness of a yarn that I would say is more optimal for cable knitting. It kind of goes flat once you block it, and it's not the best for cables. Add to that the fact that it is ridiculously soft, which in a lot of cases is a good thing, but I feel like this is going to be really susceptible to pilling, and it's not going to hold up well over time, especially considering the color. I just feel like because of my yarn choice, I'm going to have to be particularly delicate with this piece, and that's not something I want to do. So the next cable sweater I make is going to be in something more plump and rustic. And yeah, I think I learned some valuable lessons from this piece. I do really love it, if only for it being a testament of my evolving knitting skills. But there are some decisions I would have made differently. The one thing that I am willing to try to salvage is the neckline. So I'm going to unrip it and either redo the folded bind off in a stretchier fashion, or just do a tubular bind off so that it's not a folded collar. I think either of those will give me the additional stretch I need to comfortably fit this over my head, which I think for a pullover sweater is kind of the bare minimum, and this is not checking that box. So that hands down needs to be addressed. The rest are just gonna have to be things I live with and deal with, but I still love it. I just made some bad decisions with this project. So that's it. Those are all 6 of the pullover sweaters in my hand knit collection. I hope you enjoyed me ranking them. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my rankings. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this wasn't too long and boring. I'm going to go fold these sweaters and knit. Bye.